LGBT youth are kicked out of their homes by their families at alarming rates. Up to 40% of homeless youth identify as LGBT, and 1 in 4 LGBT teens are kicked out after coming out.
The LGBT community has historically and continually systematically ignored queer youth homelessness. You know, it's not as sexy as marriage equality. It doesn't have good sound bites like don't ask, don't tell. It's not been an issue that has risen to the level of other things that we see as important. My mother and I had a really complicated relationship. She's an alcoholic, has a lot of her own issues. So growing up was kind of this constant battle of trying to understand what was going on for her. That really only compounded further once I came out. The violence intensified pretty quickly, and within a couple of months I was out of the house. I knew that if I left, that she would hunt me down and bring me back, and that I wouldn't have a chance to run ever again. And so I waited until I had enough bruises that I thought they would do something. And I went to the sheriff's station in my county, and she was arrested that night. I was too old, really, for them to think I should be put in the foster care system. It was too much work to have me emancipated. It was much easier just to sort of let me go and assume that, you know, I was an honor roll student, I'd somehow be okay. That was the first time that I felt completely alone. I had no idea where I was going to go. I had no idea where I was going to sleep, how I was going to get to school the next day. And I was pretty profoundly lost. LGBTQ youth homelessness really happens in every community, and yet this is something that so few people are talking about.
Away from the media spotlight, organizations like the Night Ministry provide food, necessities, and overnight emergency shelter.
If a youth is on the streets, especially if because they're GLBT or questioning, it has a whole nother dynamic to their experience of homelessness.
We have a philosophy of meeting people where they're at. We're learning their names. We get to know people, build trust over time, and hear from them what they want to work on.
We actually need these programs, so these are places for us to go. For some people, if they can't get into the crib, for them to go shower or for them to eat.
I'm thankful to live another day. I'm thankful to see everybody once again.
I'm thankful for working with the crib. I'm thankful for having another day on this earth.
I'm thankful for my brother, see him for another day. I just want to see everybody in my family.
Again, I am grateful and always thankful for the crib being open, of course, for all of us who are a family, because we all stick together. We all try and take care of one another as best we can.
There are absolutely horrendous instances when kids come out and are immediately kicked out of the homes, and at other times parents are trying to mold their child back into this image that they had of who they were going to be or what they were going to look like, and in doing that are inherently rejecting who their child is.
My father was very abusive. He was an alcoholic. Him telling me, you wouldn't ever be a homosexual, I'm gonna break your neck if you turn out to be this, that, and other, it scared me. So I started running away. I went back home one day and he just beat me up. He really beat me up bad. My lip was busted, my eye was black, everything. I knew at 16 it was over for staying with him. I told him to his face I hated him. I didn't want to be like him. I didn't want to be around him. The message I have to those parents that don't know what to do is to sit back and actually ask your child, is it that they're actually going through? Take the time out and actually sit back and talk with them and try to get an understanding.
Once youth have entered the system, organizations like Green Chimneys offer supportive housing, basic life skills, and career training.
When youth come to Green Chimneys, they tend to have been somewhat stabilized. And by that, what I mean is that we typically, since we don't run a shelter and we run a transitional living program, that we don't usually take youth, coming right from the street.
My experience has been very enlightening. I was couch hopping, no job, no income, completely depressed, not knowing where I was going to be tomorrow. My biggest goal was a stable home, like some place to actually call home that was consistent. I'm Puerto Rican and Dominican, so in the Latino culture, it's a very big taboo. Various people in my family just don't understand that love isn't supposed to have a gender. They don't really get that. My mom, she believes she provided a stable home for me when really she didn't. She loves me regardless, but she thinks it's a phase. She's just very judgmental. This is my room, nothing fancy. There's a bunch of graffiti that people who used to live here did. It's really weird and ugly. I hated it when I first came. I just I want to say that I wanted to go home, but I had no home to go back to.
Hey Tiff, how are you?
Hi.
How was your day?
I had an interview, the job searching, all that good stuff. I've definitely built my own little family and support system here. When they get on me, it's about getting my life together and keeping me on track. It's not about who I am. They just want to make me a better person. Hopefully in 15 months when I'm out of Green Chimneys, I'm independent enough financially, emotionally, physically, legally, all that good stuff, to live on my own.
You know, when we have a 20-year-old who's getting ready to move out and go into their own place, and we think about, okay, they know how to cook a meal, they know how to pay their bills, they got a job, but, you know, when their birthday comes up, who do they spend it with? You know, when they need something in the middle of the night, who do they call? And so maybe some of those answers aren't a biological family, and that's absolutely fine as well. But who is that? It's great that it's the program that they're with for a little while, but it's not going to be in 5 years or 10 years. How are we building that piece for them in their lives, I think, is a big key.
My mom, I'm back in contact with her. We're back and forth. We've developed a better relationship now that I'm in the system. We see each other every few weeks. I keep it very short, couple-hour visits, just to keep us from fighting. A sad reality is just like, parents don't change. Like, you will never change a parent's mind.
What I've noticed in the homeless youth field, at least, is that for a long time we've been very youth empowerment focused. But what we've tended to ignore a little bit is the family piece of that. And if we as providers keep ignoring a potential support network for young people, that we're really doing a disservice to young people in the long run. We may be helping them in the short run, but we're really not setting them up to have a stable future. Our newest addition is the Family Therapy Intervention Pilot, which will be working with LGBT youth and their families.
This year, New York City awarded a grant to Green Chimneys to start a pilot program to reunite homeless LGBT youth with their biological families. This grant is one of the first of its kind in the nation. The model for their program is based on research by the Family Acceptance Project.
Well, we're actually developing very specific interventions. We start by having the family talk about their experiences and what that's like for them. Of course, we learn more about their faith tradition and cultural background before we work with them. And we help them make the connections between behaviors that they're using to try to respond to their child and what actually is happening in the life of that child.
The Family Acceptance Project is conducting much-needed research on the harmful effects of family rejection.
The Family Acceptance Project has allowed us to talk to families and parents and say, look, we can prove to you with this data that if you're doing these 5 things to your child, isolating them, not letting them go to LGBT events, telling them that you're ashamed or embarrassed about them, or even just being silent about their identity, you are putting your child at really high risk.
There's very few dollars that are actually allocated towards family preservation. Most of our emphasis has been on removing a child from a home. But the reality is that I also don't want them to stay in my residential facility until they age out. I want every young person to be in a home. I want them to have a dog, I want them to have parents, I want that. And there is something that is very different about that than a residential facility. That's just the reality.
There are definitely instances where there is no alternative but to remove that young person from their home. That said, we have simply assumed, as though it's inevitable, that families will continue to reject and abuse their LGBT children. There are no communities that we should give up on in terms of working with them to increase understanding and support.
We actually interviewed what happens in families when they end up out of home, and saw families that were really devastated by something that they didn't understand. Their child ended up out of the house, maybe they threw them out. Very rarely did a parent ever want that to happen. Very rarely would they ever want to be separated forever from their child. So we can change that by early intervention and by reunification programs.
I really didn't want my parents to know at all. And I'm sure they suspected something, but I never wanted to admit it to them because I was afraid of getting kicked out or afraid of losing my family.
I had expressed my concerns that he could be gay and what that meant. Where I grew up, macho Hispanic, being gay was a weakness as far as the way I was raised. He had some feminine qualities, and I thought that I could change it. I remember looking at EJ with disappointment and even maybe with disgust. He was young, but I know he felt it. At such a young age, there was already a gap starting to form between us in our relationship.
One night when he drank too much, and that was really, really scary for both of us, but when we went online and started looking at all the statistics about drugs and suicide, that was the turning point. We knew that what we were doing wasn't enough and that we had to do more. I saw an article about Family Acceptance Project and the importance of supportive families, and it was like a lightning bolt.
It's kind of hard for me to think back when I was 14, 15, 16 and how things used to be. Now it's like completely 100% turned around.
Everybody can change. Anybody that is out there that has any kind of heart, we can change their mind.
We have a wonderful relationship and our son is gay. So what? It's wonderful, you know? And I want that for everybody.
There are enormous policy implications of this work. One of the things that I had an opportunity to do was to talk with Senator Kerry's staff about our findings.
Madam President, I've listened to my...
They then included a provision in their recent bill.
In early 2011, Senator John Kerry from Massachusetts introduced the Reconnecting Youth to Prevent Homelessness Act. This is the first Senate bill ever to directly address LGBT youth homelessness. It focuses on helping youth reconnect with their families and escape life on the streets.
John Kerry's Act, I think, is another sign that people are paying attention to the fact that providing shelter and immediate service needs obviously addresses the need that's happening currently. But if we'd like to reduce it in the future, we have to do more than that.
Politicians talk so much about education and upping the economy, and how do you expect to do that if you have thousands of homeless kids who have the potential to actually be someone?
One of the first things that needs to happen is that we need to start talking about it. And then putting our resources and our energy with the organizations that are doing great work, donating to them. Volunteer at your local queer youth center, youth shelter. Across the country, there aren't enough services, just on a really basic level.
Any homeless youth, they're your brothers and your sisters. I mean, my God, this is a part of our community. And these are people who are struggling. Just because it hasn't been your experience doesn't mean that it doesn't exist and you can't respond to it in some way.
The thing that helped me cope most was really starting to realize that there was a community out there, that even if I couldn't access it, even if it was nowhere near the county that I was living, was this idea that there were other people and that someday I could maybe get there, if I was lucky enough to escape. I promised myself that if I made it, that I was going to make a book so that no other queer kid would feel as alone as I felt in that moment. And here it is. This is kicked out.
My life is going to be in a better place when I leave here. I'm going to be almost done with a bachelor's degree. I can be in a position of leadership and power to really help someone out and be able to look back and say, I went through that. So yeah, I get you. I went through that.
the youth that see themselves going out. Just understand that you need something in this life to look forward to. Find that one thing that's gonna keep you on a straight path, and don't let anything, nothing, steer you away.
Thank you for watching In the Life. To watch historical coverage from the last 20 years of In the Life, visit our website at itlmedia.org.
See your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. Your true colors are beautiful, like a rainbow.
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Emmeringen Foundation, Dewey and LaBeouf, the estate of Richard W. Weiland, Arcus Foundation, GILL Foundation, and these funders, and by the annual support of In the Life members like you.